Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. In praise and salutations are due to Allah alone. We give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making it possible for us to converge in this session. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us all. A very good morning for our brothers joining from Nigeria, and good evening to our Malaysian friends. We are very sorry for starting a bit late, and this has happened due to the technical glitch that Dr. Abdurrahman has had in the course of the presentation. Without taking much of our time, I'd like to briefly know about Ummah for Da'wah and Humanitarian Services. This is an organization that was established last year, and alhamdulillah, has had a profound impact on the society. It has presented many webinars, sessions across different fields. In this presentation, we are going to look at the leveraging the RSM, that's the response surface methodology for statistical and optimization process. It's part of the programs that the Ummah for Da'wah usually conducts. Basically, it is an Islamic organization with the aim of promoting Islamic teachings as well as offering humanitarian services. So with this, I would like to also introduce our guest speaker for today due to the time factor. Dr. Abdurrahman Adeleke is a fellow researcher at the Institute of Energy Infrastructure, University Tenaga, Malaysia, and he has published a number of publications in highly reputable journals. He has previously worked as a teaching fellow and postdoctoral research fellow at University Science Malaysia, that's USM, as well as UKM. He's a professional engineer and a member at the Malaysia Institute of Engineering and Technology. Dr. Abdurrahman has won an international award during a competition, that is Invention for South Korea in 2006. 2016. He's the lead editor of Science and Technology, that's a Q1 journal in the Web of Science. He is also a regular reviewer for top-tier journals such as Environmental Chemistry, Journal of Hazardous Materials, Journal of Cleaner Production, Scientific Report, Bioscience, Technology, and he has reviewed more than 100 papers for the Journal of Cleaner Production and has won the Best Reviewer of the Month award in November 2018. In addition to that, Dr. Abdurrahman has given several talks on science-related matters as well as related to research and publication. With this, I would like to formally welcome Dr. Abdurrahman for today's session and proceed with the presentation. Thank you so much. Dr. Abdurrahman, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's not that audible.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I apologize for the little glitches that that delayed our presentation. And without further ado, I would like to welcome each and every one of us to today's short course. The admin has already introduced myself, and without wasting much time, we'll be talking about modeling and optimization of process variables using response surface methodology. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
It is audible,
Yes.
So, not sure you're hearing me. So, introduction to experimental design. When we talk about experimental design, we are talking about means of comparison between process variables. By process variables, we are talking about operational factors that we are putting into consideration in a design, in an experimental design, to achieve an outcome. The effect of the changes that could be observed in a product is what we call outcome. So that is basically what we do in terms of like having a very standardized experimental design to achieve an end result, which is the outcome of the process variables. So we will talk about what a systematic experimental design is all about. When we say systematic experimental design, we are looking at the significance of those operational variables that is put into consideration to achieve an utmost outcome. And in this respect, when we say utmost outcome, we are talking about the response. So in a nutshell, a response determines the outcome of an operational variables that is set for an experiment. So as you just rightly see below, a response is defined as a parameter to be investigated. Okay, A plus B, if it gives C, C in that case is called the response, while A plus B are those operational variables that is put together. The effect of those A and B to achieve C is what experimental design, modeling, and optimization is all about. Now, we want to talk about some terms. Optimization of process variables. When we optimize process variables, we are looking at the effect of A and B as it affects C, which is the end product. So there are basically two ways in which we can go about that. We have what is called the linear optimization, and we have the non-linear optimization in a process, in an operational system. We have the linear optimization and the non-linear optimization. Now, when we say linear optimization, we are talking about a conventional approach of optimizing process variables. For example, we want to look at the effect of A as it affects A and B. So by so doing, it means we are going to fix a parameter. In this respect, we are fixing B to determine the effect of A as it affects the response outcome, which is C. And by doing that, we would later consider the effect of B by fixing the parameter A as it affects the response outcome C. So we have the nonlinear system, which is nonlinear optimization. That is when you consider multiple process variables. You are looking at the effects of operational factors concurrently. I use that word concurrently in the sense that it distinguishes between a linear and non-linear system. A non-linear system factors operational variables simultaneously to achieve a response outcome. Usually, it is achieved using a response surface method, which is basically our talk for today. So when we talk about...
Sorry, Doctor, can you put it in a slide mode?
We are looking at the conventional method. Can you see my slides?
Yes, but it's not in slideshow.
Okay. Now, when we talk about a matrix design, we are looking at just a minute. Okay. So we are looking at the conventional method of experimental design, observing changes of the process one at a time. That is, we have talked about that. That is linear optimization. For instance, you want to determine the effect of a process under control system as it affects the general outcome by holding other parameters fixed. Then you optimize another process variable, and you look at the general effect as it affects the entire operational system. So this has a lot of limitations, and that is why usually we consider a non-linear system. One of the limitations of a linear system is that it is time consuming. Before you fix a parameter, for example, if you are dealing, let's assume that you are dealing with 5 variables. How do you fix a parameter by holding four other parameters, and you fix another parameter holding the other 4 parameters? When you look at the permutation and combinations, that will yield a lot of experiments, and it is not going to, you will not be able to standardize a perfect experimental design. So that is basically what a non-linear system, the drawback the non-linear system try to justify and to solve the challenge that a non-linear system solves about a linear system. Hence, the prediction of process outcome could be over and underestimated. So basically, a linear system usually gives you an approximate, it gives you an estimation. It is not comprehensive. If it is not comprehensive, it is either you are overestimating or underestimating a process outcome. So when we design an experiment, we are taking consideration of several factors and the effect of the interaction. I repeat, the effect of the interaction between those factors. That is what a systematic design is all about. We are looking at the effect of A. We have A plus B to give a response outcome, which is C. Then we want to consider the effect of A as it affects B. In that case, that is linear. We want to consider the effect of A and B as it affects C. Are there synergistic interaction between A and B to yield a response outcome C? Or is the interaction antagonistic? Well, by that, it means, are we looking at it that the negative coefficient of the interaction is inhibiting the operational system? So that is what interaction is all about. So for instance, when we design an experimental analysis of 4 variables, for example, we are looking at an experiment that has 4 variables. And we are considering, usually we consider at polynomial level. So we use 2-factor levels, because for you to be able to contain the number of experiments, for you to be able to have a standardized experimental design. So what that means is that you are having 2 to the power of 4 of the variables to be considered. That is excluding the other conditions, which could be from the center point, it could be from the extra point as extrapolated by the model. So what are the objectives of a systematic design? 3 things we try to understand when we want to design, when we are looking at a design. The first thing is the effective design of the experiment. How do you achieve an effective experimental design, which is the most fundamental part of modeling and optimization? Is your design effective? How do you know an effective design? Like for a reviewer would easily know whether the author understand has a theoretical understanding of what he or she is presenting as a paper. Because, for example, you are looking at an experiment whereby the condition that has been set is standardized. So your design must be within that framework of what has been established in the literature. I will use an example. For example, you are considering the effects of the interaction, the effect of absorption or coagulation based on the interaction of some variables, for example, pH, contact time, dosage, right? Now, how do you design the experiment? How do you know the pH that is going to be set for, that you are going to set, you understand, for your experimental design? The first thing you consider is that is your adsorption capacity for your media, is it towards the extreme acidic condition or extreme alkaline condition, right? If, for example, if maximum adsorption is towards acidic medium, so more of the design consideration has to be in the acidic phase. Okay. Now, if you, for example, you are looking at the effect of agitation speed, that is the shaking speed. Okay. Now you are using a design that is not within the that is not really scientifically that doesn't make much sense scientifically. For example, what I mean by that is that you want to consider the shaking speed, the speed that is going to be relevant to your adsorbent to enhance your adsorption capacity of your material. You obviously will not put, you obviously will not set a very high shaking speed, for example 500 rpm. That means there is not going to be an interaction, so to say, between the adsorbent, that is your material, and the adsorbate, that is the supernatant, the medium that you want to adsorb from. You understand? So you have to set your conditions in a way that is going to be scientifically proven to achieve an effective experimental design. Then the next part of the objective of a systematic design is the statistical analysis of the model parameters. Okay, that we are going to consider as we go on in our presentation. What are the statistical significance of your model parameters? What is the correlation coefficient? What is the precision? What is the lack of feet? What is the so many things to consider in this aspect? What is the adjust r square? You understand? What is the correlation between the real r square and the adjusted r square and all that? Then the last part of what a systematic design does is the optimization of those process variables that you have designed for your prediction, for the prediction of your responses. Okay. Now, for example, when we have an experiment that wants us to determine the efficiency of an adsorbent, so I'm trying to just use this. We could, depending on your area of expertise or your field of research, you can consider your process variables to suit your design consideration. So this is just an experiment that we want to look at how to put together those three objectives that we have highlighted earlier, which is effective experimental design, statistical significance of your process variables, then the optimization of the model parameters. Now look at this example. The efficiency of an adsorbent was investigated for the reduction of rhodamine B and COD from hydrophobic trace organic contaminant in urban stormwater using operational conditions of pH between 2 and 10, the contact time, and the dosage given in gram per liter. So the operational condition can be represented in the form of, in the design matrix, either in coded or uncoded form. forms. We represent our design in coded forms or in uncoded forms. By coded forms, we have before that we have what is the factorial design, and we have the easier design. When we talk about the AZ design, we are looking at the lowest and the maximum limits in terms of alpha. Then when we are looking at factorial design, which basically we use for this purpose of our course, short course today, we use factorial design. So we are factoring the lower and the low and the high limits, which is minus, as you can see, minus and plus, while the midpoint is there, that's what, 0. So in this case now, if we are looking at the pH, it means that the midpoint is 6, which is average of the low and the high point. So that is the different the representation of independent variables, which are your process variables, you understand, in terms of coded and uncoded. So these are the coded forms. So it means in your design, you have them in minus, 0, or 1. If uncoded, then it means you have your experiment in the actual experimental data that you have set for your design. Okay. Now, this is what we are talking about. Experimental design encoded is usually represented with plus, minus, and minus. 0 is the midpoint, as we have said. Plus is the maximum limit. Minus is the minimum limit. So these are what we call the experimental runs. Experimental runs means the number of experiments that you are going to perform. That's the process variables are those operational conditions. So these are the notation. Probably you are representing your pH by x1. You are representing your contact time by S2, and maybe your dosage absorbent dosage by X3, as the case may be. So as I said, responses are your operational outcome. What is the effect of these parameters as it affects the removal of rhodamine B from stormwater, right? What is the effect of these parameters as it reduces the COD from the urban stormwater? So that is the final outcome. That is what we call responses. So, for example, there are some definitions you need to understand. When we say effects, we are talking about the influence of those parameters, the influence of those process variables as it affects your operational outcome. Okay. Now we have what is full factorial design. You know, I said our discussion today is based on factorial. Okay. A full factorial design considers all the possible combination of those factor levels, all possible combination, both the linear, both the quadratic, both the cubic. You understand? It factors in all the possible combination of your factors and the interactions. Yes, the interactions between those process variables to give you a robust prediction of your experimental outcome. Now, response surface method, as we said, the linear method have limitations that response surface is trying to solve. Okay, so and basically the difference is that the linear method doesn't envisage a quadratic, the effect of quadratic and cubic interaction of process variables. You know, we have already explained what we mean by effect. So the effect of quadratic and cubic as it affects the process variables is not considered when we are looking at the linear method of optimization. So in this sense, it means the nonlinear condition such as quadratic phenomenon cannot be considered under linear optimization, as we've rightly said. So what we mean by Y is the response parameter, which is the final outcome, the response. The function is which is a function of the process variables. S, Y, S2, S1, S2, and so on are called the independent process variables or factors. It depends on how you want to put it. While the sigma is the experimental error, which usually shouldn't be very large. The smaller the experimental error, the more robust is your prediction. Now, we are talking about the expected response. The expected response could be Y, you understand, and is a function of your independent variables. And while n denotes the surface area that is navigated within the frame, within the reference frame of your process variables. That is your surface area that the response surface predicts. Now, we have what is called under response surface. We said it is it's a nonlinear system. So in that case, it envisage a higher degree second order cubic effect. Okay. Now, when we say second order response, we are talking about the direction of which could be maximum or minimum as predicted by the response. So to determine the second order polynomial, we have this denotation y to be a polynomial function, as you have rightly said, seen there in equation 4. This is the linear parameter. This is the interaction between the linear parameter. This is the quadratic effect of the interaction, and so on and so forth. So that is what this is actually the interpretation of a response surface, a general equation that predicts the total effect of your experimental design, the modeling, and the optimization, the equation 4. So now we will talk about regression coefficients. From the example that the case study that we are trying to consider, we said there is what we call regression coefficient that is actually being predicted from the model, that is from the second objective. You know, the first one is the design, the second one is the statistical significance of the design, then the other aspect, which is the third part, is the process optimization of the design. So when we look at the regression coefficient of the two responses that we've considered in our course today, which is Rhodamin B and COD. You know, when we say COD, for those in environmental sciences and engineering, COD is the amount of oxygen that is required to be oxidized by an anaerobic bacteria, you understand? So usually when the COD is high, it means dissolved oxygen in the receiving water or maybe in the groundwater is low. And when the dissolved oxygen is low, it means there is going to be competition for the little available oxygen for aquatic respiration. So usually that would not be desirable. It won't be desirable for that ecosystem. So usually we will try to reduce the COD in our wastewater, in the water stream, and Rhodamin B, of course, is high. So usually if the COD is high, it means the parameter is violated. So that is a deviation anyway. So now this is how we represent the regression coefficient. As you see, S1 to S3, they are the linear effect of the process variables on the operational factors. Okay, then the quadratic effect is what we have here on the operational variable. So we are in this case now, this depicts the quadratic effect of pH as it affects the reduction of COD and Rhodamin B. This is the interaction, that is the interaction between contact time and pH as it affects the reduction of COD and Rhodamin B. So usually you could have it positive or negative. The positive coefficient, is it significant? We'll get back to that. Is it not? Is it insignificant? Is the negative effect, is it significant? Of course, this is a negative coefficient, as you can see. Is it significant? That is, does it favor the reduction of COD, or it is antagonistic, you understand, in nature? Okay. For example, if maybe the positive effect, does it affect your operational system, or does it inhibit your operational system? So that is what modeling using surface method solves. Now, for example, look at this table. Is a statistical table, and over which the model predicts. Okay, it tells you the number of, usually we have the p value and they have the f value. So the p value is just the opposite of the f value, which determines the robustness or aptness of the model for to predict the response outcome. So usually when the p is less than, the p has to be less than 0.05 for any of the process variables to be significant. Okay, the p has to be less than 0.05. As I said, we have the lack of fit. The lack of fit has to be, it mustn't be significant for the model to be valid. Okay, we have what is called the R square, which is the correlation coefficient, and usually the correlation coefficient must be very close to the R square. That is the adjusted R square. You are not adjusting the R square. The model is predicting the adjust value of the R square. Then we have the adequate precision. The adequate precision usually must be greater than 4. So when your value as predicted by the model is greater than 4, then it means your model is valid. Usually in a table, you cannot manipulate, in the sense that a reviewer would, with your design of experiment, with your table 1 that you have designed, a reviewer could just key in those values that you have designed and to know the outcome of your experiment from your statistical interpretation. Okay, so this is a example of a response surface. Okay, as you can see, we are looking at the interaction. How does the pH of the operational system and the effect of dosage, we have talked about effect. How does the effect of the interacting pH and dosage, does it really improve on the rhodamine B remover from the water stream? Okay, so that is what we call interaction. So we thank you for the first part of our presentation. So I would like to now try to implement what we have done from the design experts, which is to make it interactive in nature. So what we'll do now is this. Let me try and open and okay. Just a minute. Okay. Here we go. Oh, okay. So are we together? Okay. So now we want to look at how we can so now you go to new design. Okay, as you can see, this is two-factor level. Okay, usually that is how you are looking at two-level factorial design. Okay, now since we are talking about response surface, then you come to response surface. Okay, now let's assume that we want to design 3 experiments, just like that example. I want to follow up with that example. We have 3 experiments. So it means you now come to the column. Each of the rows you key in your design. You have pH, you have contact time, then you have the dose. Okay, now the conditions you have set, the low limit 2, you set the high limit 10. Okay, then for your contact time, we are using 30 minutes, 0.5 hour, which is 30 minutes. Then we have 2 hours. Okay. Then maybe the adsorbent doses, we are using 0.2 gram per liter, okay, to 1 gram per liter. Then you go to next. Then since we have how many responses now? We have two. If you have been following, you will know that we have two responses, which is rhodamine B, and we have the COD. Usually, we want to determine the percentage reduction, okay? The percent reduction of rhodamine B and COD. Even though the unit of COD is in the milligram per liter, so we can actually set the reduction in percentage. We want to determine the percentage removal. So finish. As you can see, we have 20 experimental runs to perform. So that means you have to go to the lab. See, look at this is display. As you can see, there are some things you have to consider, and there's no perfect system. As you can see, the pH is minus, okay? So you could consider 0.72 as your pH. You understand? So what this is telling you is that the pH is extremely low in acidic medium, of course. So you could consider that. Now look at the display. You come to this display, you have your process factors. So these are your actual values that you have set for your design. If the actual process variables, I mean the values you have set for the design. So if you want to put it in coded forms, then you have they come like this. You see, it is now usually I will recommend that you put your experimental designs in coded forms. That is for the purpose of publications and all that. Get. So now you have your first response, which is rhodamine B, and you have your second response, which is the COD. You understand? So experiment has been designed. So we might not have the luxury to be doing the imputation. So what you do is you must have saved. That means you go to the lab, you perform your experiment per each of the column. Maybe you are doing 3-4 experiments per day, or as it suits you. Then you get your triplicated values, the average. You key in those values, and you have to be very mindful of something. From the theory, what does your experimental design, what does it tilt towards? Is your removal of your rhodamine B tilting towards acidic medium, just like I said the other time, or the system that you are designing, is it tilting towards is it favoring your process variables that you have designed? Okay, is it to the left? Is it or to the right? Is it positively or negatively? So all this must have been well established from your theory, as you must have been conversant with the theory governing your experimental design, the setup. Now, since I do not have the luxury to start keying the value, so I can maybe I've performed all these experiments and I've obtained results for each of it. You understand? So if there is a deviation, it means you have to go back to the lab. It means maybe there's a kind of issue with your design, maybe with your data and all that. It could be the way you perform your experiment, you carried out your experiment. It could be a shortfall in your experimental design, and so many factors that could affect the prediction of your outcome. So you come to file, you go to open design. Since I've actually put something for this for the purpose of this workshop, then I will enter open. You want to save changes? No. So now, as you can see, these are my actual process variables. I could change them to coded. So you just come to display outcome, then you have coded. Okay. Now you have for your first experiment, reduction of rhodamine B was 97%. understand? So you could, one thing about response surface is that you are not just writing figures, okay? Because it is easy to just put 97 and to just put your values and to just go away. No, every process variable has interpretation. For example, the effect of pH as a linear factor, as it affects the removal of your rhodamine B, as it affects the reduction of COD, the effect of dosage, the effect of time, the interaction of pH and dosage, the interaction between pH and time. Is it going to be favorable when the dosage is high, when the dosage is low? You understand? If the dosage is high, does it favor optimum reduction capacity of your media for the reduction of rhodamine B, for the reduction of COD, and so on and so forth? So from this experimental design, we have gone to the lab, we have achieved these results for each of the case studies. Okay, so now you now go back to analysis. You know, as I said, this design expert is in threefold. The first one is design, as you can see, which we have designed. Then the next is the analytical approach to quantify the response, the interpretation of your responses. These are the responses, the outcome of your experiment. So we want to interpret, that's the analysis. Then the last aspect is the optimization. Okay, now we go to rhodamine B, the first one. Now you have some suggestions. You have a transform, you don't really need that. You go to fit summary. The fit summary tells you which of the model will be relevant, will be very, very significant for your model. So we have been told, according to this model, that quadratic modeling is going to be favorable for the prediction of our experimental design. Okay, so we are using, for in that case, we want to use quadratic modeling, quadratic second order polynomial modeling for our design. Now you come to model, you see it's quadratic, so you don't really need that. So these are what the quadratic envisage. These are the linear parameters that we are trying to optimize, the interaction between the parameters. These are the quadratic effect of the parameters. These are the interaction between the variables, the process variables. This is the quadratic interaction, the quadratic and linear interaction. That is the quadratic effect of pH and the linear interaction of dosage, how it affects the operational system, and so on and so forth. This is the cubic linear effects of the parameters, you know, and so on. You could have it. That's why I said you could have so many experiments. You understand? So you don't have to go to infinity. You understand? That is what RSM does. Imagine you having dosage to the power of 6. Look at that polynomial function. So you could have more than 5,000 experiments. So that is what it has taken care of all. It has put together all your process variables within a confined experimental design framework. Now you now have we now go to the statistical analysis of our prediction. So as you can see, just like I said, the p-value must be significant for the model to be valid. For the validity of the model, it means that the p must be less than 0.05. The value of p must be less than 0.05 for your model to be significant. And for that to happen, it means that your f value must as well be significant. Okay, so the f value is significant. That is if there is 0.24, that's 0.24% of that, the chances that the f value is large will occur due to noise. That is, the f value must be large. You understand? The higher the f value, the lower should be your p value. Okay, so the model is significant for this prediction of our process variables. Now look at the interactions. Then we'll talk about the effect of this interaction. These are the we work towards the p-values in consonance with the coefficient of the regression. These are the coefficient of the regression. As you can see, the coefficient of regression is the intercept for the intercept, which is the model, is this, okay? So for the pH, you have a negative effect, okay? So it means from the model here, you could say it is significant. That is the word. The negative effect of pH is significant. Negative effect of pH is significant to the model. Okay, so it means that the negative effect of that pH is going to inhibit. Try and get it clearly. It is significant. It is significant means that it will affect negatively the outcome of your responses as it relates to rhodamin B. pH as a linear factor. The negative effect of linear pH is going to affect the reduction of your rhodamin B based on the absorption capacity, based on the capacity of your material, okay, and so on. If the interaction is positive, then it is favorable. If it is negative, it is not favorable. Okay, as you can see, the interaction between just report your result the way it is. You don't have to manipulate anything because it will be counterproductive. So look at this interaction between pH and dosage. Negative effect of pH and dosage is not significant. It is not significant means that the negative effect of pH and dosage is going to favor the reduction capacity, is going to favor the reduction of your rhodamin B. That means the absorption capacity of your media, which is your material, is going to be very, very, very favorable towards the negative interaction of your pH and dosage. Okay, and so on and so forth like that. Okay, so we have as we can see, the correlation coefficient. For it to be significant, it has to be greater than 0.7. So it has to be greater by 0.7 means 70%. So this is 0.86, which is and the difference, the correlation between the adjusted correlation coefficient and the real correlation coefficient, it must not be far apart for the model to be valid. So at the precision, as I said, it must be greater than 4. A value greater than 4 is desirable. That means your ratio is 8.889 as predicted, which indicates adequate signal. It means the model can be used to navigate the design space. That is what that means, is that based on your design consideration to navigate that space, it is valid, it is desirable based on the prediction of your responses. Okay, so now we continue in that direction. So we want to look at the diagnostic effect. That's the figurative interpretation of the analysis. Okay, we have what is called the normal plot, we have the residual plot, we have the box scores, we have so many things to play around here. Okay, now usually I use this mostly in my works: normal plots, residual plots. Then I will explain one after the other. See, normal plots, you are looking at the effect of the studentized residual, you understand, in respect to the normal probability of your prediction. Usually, when they align to a linear plot, it means that your model is valid. But if they are dispersed, it means there is no correlation and that prediction is not favorable as it relates to your responses. One thing is that when your model is not, when the prediction is not favorable, it has nothing to do with the model. It could be your design. Your design within that framework of your design consideration, are they validly interpreted based on the responses that is obtained from the lab that you you have secured your responses, from the results of the lab you get. So that is what the normal plot. It has to align with your plot, your linear plot. Then we have the as I said, these are residue, but all these are not too important. It depends on what you want to use. There are so many things about it. It depends on what is actually valid, what is applicable to your study. Now, we have the predicted outcome and the actual outcome. The predicted outcome should align with the actual outcome. If they are so dispersed, it means the design is faulty. Okay. Now, when we say bus course, is a form of power transforms. So what bus course envisage is that in a scenario whereby, based on your design consideration, there is disparity in your analytical outcome. Okay, so the bus course tries to transform your data. So if your lambda, as denoted by the bus course, usually the transform is represented by lambda, by the denotation of lambda. So if it is equals to 1, the more it tilts to 1, shows that there's no point for you to transform your data. If there's no need to transform your data, it means your prediction is very, very valid and accurate. Okay, so now we go to other things. So we have hello. So we have the model graphs. You understand? So you can use different forms of presenting your data. Okay, make it very, very attractive. Make your presentation very, very engaging. It will be very, very pleasant for your thesis, and at the same time for the purpose of your publication. Maybe you want to do some statistical analysis in your work requires optimization. So make it very, very engaging and interesting. So we use 3D. So visually response surface, you see, this is the interaction between pH and dosage. Okay, now you see from our, we use a coded value from -1 to 1, from low to maximum limit of your pH, from the low to maximum limit of the dosage. So it means that from this now, it means that an increase in a reduction in pH, as you can see, as the pH reduces, you see, this is you look at the peak of the interaction in that 3D. Okay, so it is coming towards a reduced value of pH, while an increased value of dosage favors higher reduction capacity of the adsorbent for the removal of rhodamin B. So you can come here, pH and dosage. You can try to know the interaction of pH and time. What is the effect when you combine as the two parameters? You want to know, you don't want to look at the effect of the whole system. You are only concerned about how does pH and contact time affects your response. So you can see as predicted by the model. Okay, so and so on. We will see have dosage, the effect of dosage and contact time. So another thing is the interaction. Now, if you want to consider the parameters, okay, together, the parameters, you want to look at the effect of the interactions of the parameters, the three parameters. Usually, the interaction of between time and pH and so on and so forth. So you can come here, you look at the effect of the interaction for the purpose of so you just go to your edit, then you copy, or you can just right click, you copy, then you put on your Word, then you transform those images, right? So now we go to numerical optimization. Now, optimization numerically means we want to know the maximum and the lowest limits of your prediction. Now let's look at rhodamin B. What is the lowest limit? let's look at the maximum. So it means that based on our material that we are using, the media that you are using for your experiment, it means that the reduction capacity of your media could reduce rhodamine B by 7.4. This is the lowest limit, and this is the highest limit, maximum limit. So that is what you can actually have here. The minimum, you can see just the opposite, and the other response same. You understand? So you have more. You don't really need. You can go to more graphs. You don't really need that. We have already. That has already been shown in the. There's already we have already shown the graphs under optimization. So now we want to look at other things. Okay, even under numerical, we are not done yet. Now there's what we call solutions. Solutions means that we want to look at when you consider those process variables that you have set for your design. Okay, now how does it affect your COD? How does it affect your rhodamine B? At what desirability coefficient? Okay, so if the desirability coefficient is greater than 0.7, so it means it is highly desirable. Okay, now as you can see, it means that when you want to look at for your proper experimental design, you have a low pH, high dosage, and low contact. These are actually the coded forms. But at a low pH, you look at the actual form. You can actually come here again. We go to the actual so that we know. You see, it means at the pH of 10, dosage of 1, contact time of 1 hour, 1 gram per liter, pH of 10. Under alkaline condition, you could have alkaline condition does not favor the reduction of rhodamine B, but it reduces the pH, the COD of this system of your model data and so on. So you look at the desirability coefficient, the one that suits your design consideration. So so now this is the coefficient. The coefficient. We are talking about the effect of each of the operational factors as it affects the responses. Okay, this is the intercept, and these are your what do we call it now? These are your negative and the positive coefficients. Depict the interaction between your coefficient, the quadratic effect of your coefficient as it affects rhodamine B. It means based on our design consideration, it means our material was able to reduce rhodamine B by 95.95%, and the COD could be reduced by 90.55%. So this is what response surface does. When you look at linear, you might not really be able to factor out how to model those experiments within that time frame, and at the same time, the accuracy and the validity of your prediction might be a thing to be put into questioning. So with this, I thank you all for creating that time to listen to my presentation, and we apologize for the glitches that we experienced in the beginning of our presentation. Now we have the floor, which is open for questions, so that we can have some interactive engagement. Maybe very few, because of the time time has been fast spent over here. So over to you, moderator.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdulrahman, for this very insightful presentation. Indeed, all would have agreed with me that during his presentation, he has done justice to the topic, and he has explained the essential aspect of the response surface methodology. And another thing is, in addition to being uh, less time consuming, if we compare with the one factor at a time, RSM provides opportunity to cut cost. That is, it is inexpensive, because if you are to run for the one factor at a time, you will need a lot of resources. So with this, you may have a few number of experiments to run. So it's very interesting, and we thank you for that. So the room is open for question and comment. If you have a question, you can put down on the chat box, or you can unmute yourself to present. Thank you. Salis, we can start with Salis. Yes, go on, Salis. Salis Awol, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you very much, the presenter and also the organizers. Actually, my have should I say a request? I joined late, a bit late, because I had some difficulties with the connection. But I have been with you for the past 30 minutes.
Good.
So thank you so much. And please, if there is any room where the lecture can be shared to us, please, I would be glad for that. That's number one.
Yes.
Okay, number two, Mr. Presenter, please, I want to ask that to the ANOVA table. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, doctor. Please, doctor, to regard to the ANOVA table, I always get confused with the sum of the squares.
Okay.
At times you will see that the sum of the square, like maybe in case of pH or temperature or any of the factor. So do we have like any relationship between the sum of the squares and also the significance of the factor we study?
Okay. So based on the sum of square from your ANOVA prediction, sum of a square is just a kind of cumulative of the effect of your how do I put it now? The sum of the square is the cumulative effect of that parameter. You get it, based on the p value as it affects the f value. So normally the p value and the f value is valid more of when you want to do your interpretation. So you do not have any much issue with the sum of the square. The sum of the square is directly relating you to the value of your to your p values, to your f values, and at the same time your lack of it. So that is just basic. Sum of the square is just the value that is represented as it relates to your p values and your f values. So basically it is your p values and your f value that is significant as far as each of those parameters is concerned. Nevertheless, the sum of the square has to be represented in your table, because it's just like you are talking about to achieve a response, the interpretation of a response based on a parameter. The p-value is 0.02, which means it is significant. The sum of the square is what, maybe you have 27.8. So the 27.8 is related to the 0.02. So that is 0.02 is what is going to be relevant to your prediction. I hope I get you clearly, or you
Yes,
understand
yes,
better.
doctor. That means more attention should be paid to the p
Yeah,
value and
it's
the
not
f value.
it's not a yeah, it's not something fundamental, yes.
Okay, okay, thank you.
But it has to be represented in your table.
Okay, okay, doctor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdurrahman. So inshallah, the slides will be shared. We have tested the Google form in the chat box. For the certification, you need to fill out the form. And if you are not interested about the certification, you can kindly email us. The email was also dropped down there. Thank you so much. And with respect to the response given by Dr. Abdurrahman, I think it's very clear about the sum of squares. You see, the sum of squares usually is about the variation of the means. So we have the sum of squares within and the sum of squares between groups and the total sum of squares. So that is basically telling you about the variation, since the ANOVA is the analysis of variance. So the things that he told you about the F factor, that's the F factor and the P values, they are the final determinant whether there is significant or not. This is just an addition.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I proceed and ask?
Yeah, you can go on.
Hello. Okay, thank you so much, Doctor, for this wonderful presentation. Honestly speaking, I can say this is the first time of knowing what RSM is. I'm very serious about it, and it also does what I am very much
Can you speak
interested
louder? I can't
about.
hear you.
Okay, I say, yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. Okay, to save
Okay.
time, please, is the app free? Let's say now I want to use it. Is it free or I have to subscribe and pay some amount?
No, the thing is, you can actually install your design expert. If maybe someone has the crack version, or you can get the license, the professional license as a student. Maybe, for example, if your university subscribes to some of these apps, then you can have it. So, like, you have different versions. You don't have to get yourself worried about the version. It's about the way the interface appears on your version. Version 6, the one I'm using presently is version 12. You have version 6. You have different versions, you understand? So if maybe your university subscribes to different application and you have design expert as one of it in your library or in your resource center, then you can easily install, or you can even get the cracked version.
Okay, understand. Then please, is design of experiment the same as experimental design? What is the difference between them?
Did I hear you very well? You say what?
Differences between design of experiment and experimental design, or are they all the same?
Okay, they are design of experiment. Experimental design of experiment is a matter of semantics. Okay, design of experiment, you want to achieve a response. Okay, experimental design, you have actually achieved, you have designed your experiment and you want to carry out, you want to validate the effect of those experimental conditions, the process variables that you have designed as it affects the response. So basically, they are not something experimental design of experimental design. You are putting in some variables. You want to optimize those variables. You want to determine the effect of those variables on the operational system. Design of experiment. You want to design an experiment. You want to know the effects of each of the parameters as it affects the process variable. So basically, it's a matter of semantics. There's no, they are talking about the same thing in different ways.
Okay, I understand. Then the last question is, I am very much more interested in these ones because I am also working on petroleum actually. The
Okay.
effect of sustainable material, I want to design modifiers. So I
Okay.
want to see the effect of my sustainable modifier on rheology, viscosity, and other factors So, but my question here is now, how will I, if I put, let's say, rheology, and I put the name of my design or synthesized material, will the app be able to know the chemical aspect of it so that it will relate and correlate? How will um, I don't know if how to put it. By just putting these parameters, does the app actually straightforward knows the relationship between this rheology and even maybe my material?
uh, just like I said in the beginning of the presentation, what response surface, what it does is for you is for to to make a prediction based on your theoretical framework. Already, first and foremost, you must be conversant with the theoretical framework of that subject, of that research, or you get the point. If you follow me right from beginning, I said, if for example you are trying to reduce rhodamin B, at what condition will it be favorable? For example, the design stated that at alkaline condition, rhodamin B might not be that favorable, except it is maybe in acidic medium. So what the design does is to give you a kind of graphical representation, the numerical interpretation. It means maybe at acidic condition. So the interpretation will align with your theory, the theory that must have been established based on your understanding, based on that research. You understand? You already know that maybe cation favors reduction, maybe at acidic medium, maybe the media, if it is a negative charge surface, is it going to be valuable? That is in the case of the example that I cited. For example, in your case now, you are looking at the viscosity of your material. You look at it that, okay, now if your material is viscous, does it improve on the operational condition of your material? Do you now look at it that the material is, is the material favorable in an hydrophobic medium? Is it going to be favorable in hydrophilic medium? So it means you must have understood the whole concept about the work. So what the RSM does is just the interpretation, just the statistical interpretation of that, of what you have actually modeled, and what, based on the input parameters that you want to work on, that based on that input parameter, this is what you have designed. Even though the process parameters that you have designed does not mean that other parameters doesn't have an effect on the operational condition of your responses. You understand? You are only considering that within the framework of those parameters that you have designed, how does it affect other parameters? Other conditions could as well be significant to whatever is going to be the capacity of your material to be functional, to be considered a functional material. I hope that is understood. The theory goes with the analysis. The theoretical part has to do with, it doesn't have to, this one is experimental. The theoretical part is from, which is most important. You have to understand the operational conditions, how it interacts based on theory. You understand? So this is just a validation. The response surface, the optimization, the modeling is just a validation of those theory. So easily, like if as a reviewer, you could know even whether this the researcher has actually done the work, or just fabricating the data and modeling, and in effectual modeling. You understand? You know from the theory you get. So if your theory aligns with the result of your model prediction, then you have a very perfect you could say you have a very perfect end result, both in terms of what you expected based on your design.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Doctor. Thank you so much.
thank you, sir. Thank
And perhaps to make an emphasis with what the doctor has explained with respect to the selection of factors, he rightly said that there may be other factors that may have an influence on your responses, but you have not selected them. So that's why it's very important. There are screening design like Palakat-Barman design. Let's say you have 5 factors. So you can use the Palakat-Barman design to see which among the factors which are the most significant, which will enable you to go for the response surface methodology, either using Box-Behnken or the complete CCD, as Dr. explained. Maybe the last question, I see Al-Mustafa.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir. Can you hear
Al-Mustafa,
me, sir?
can you go on so that you may be the last due to the time
Yes, sir.
constraint?
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, can hear you.
Okay, sir. The presenter, the organizers of this workshop, thank you very much for this opportunity. My question is, yes, actually, I'm an MSc student and I'm currently, I think what I'm researching now on, I'll be using this RSM for my experimental design. Though I will be coupling it with artificial neural network for the assessment of some parameters. So please, my own question is, when you were entering the data, so concerning that low and high, how will I know? Let's say when you say pH, okay, we have the low, you have to give, you have to maybe put the low value of it, the high, then from there, something like that, when you were coding the first time. So please, how can I get the, let's say, is it from the literature, maybe after I have reviewed other works related to mine, and I notice, okay, the lowest value for socio parameter independent variable is this, and the lowest and the highest for it is this. Is it what I will be using to design the experiment, or how do I get the low and the high values? That's my question, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ahmed Al-Mustafa, for your question. You see, one thing we've said during our first presentation is that the first and the most important thing is your design. You understand? In that table 1, we highlighted the lower limit and upper limit. So you are back to your question. How do I know what should be considered as the lower limit, what should be considered as the upper limit, which is very, very fundamental. Now, the thing is, you have to understand the theory, just like I said earlier on, of that very research. Okay. Now, for example, I said rhodamine B reduction. Is it really favored under extreme? I'm trying to give myself a hypothetical thinking first before I now juxtapose what I'm thinking about with what is in the theory. That's from publications, from high impact factor works that has been published. How do I know how to set my limit? So I ask myself that, is it going to be favorable under extreme acidic medium or extreme alkaline medium? If my answer is yes, that acidic medium is going to be favorable for the attachment of my media on a negatively charged surface, it means that at what lower limit do I set? Then that refers you to the literature. You look at the related works in that area. You look at what they have set as a limit. You could adapt, or not necessarily adapting. You could be guided by that. You understand? For example, if maybe you have a pH in a paper based on the related work in that area, you have pH between 2 and 10. You could set yours as 3 and 11. You understand? So that is how you know how to set limit. There's no hard and fast rule about it. It's about you knowing about what the experiment is about, and for you to now compare with what is in the literature, then that will guide you in setting your lower limit and the upper limit.
Thank you very much. I really understand. I'm grateful, sir. It is an opportunity to be part of this. Thank you, sir. So about the Google form then, the organizers, they said we have not seen the link and we need the...
Okay, I will post it. Thank you so much, man, for taking much of your time despite that game and giving us a wonderful presentation on this very topical and contemporary topic. Even though it has been there for more than 50 years, but still RSM is very, very important for most industries as well as researchers. So we thank you for this. So also our participant, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward us abundantly, and may we be guided both in this world and in the hereafter. The Google form will be shared again, and the certification, inshallah, within 2 to 3 days, you will receive your certificate, inshallah. And as well as the video, those that are interested in the slide recording can contact us via our email. I have already get the email. If you already fill out the Google form, there is no need for sending another email. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's my honor and privilege to be invited to share my time and to share with you about the short course. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Dr. Abdul Rahman, and have a nice day. So this, we have come to the end of the presentation, and till we meet again. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.